Yes, I am your noble host, Pharaoh Fresh, and we're back with another one. And the question I want to ask you guys is: are Somalis the most feared ethnic group in Africa? The reason I come to this conclusion is number one, me being a Somali. Of course, I'm gonna carry my biases and say yes, that's true. But growing up, I never knew this. As I done my research, I never knew this was the case. When we look at throughout history, we see that the region of Somalia, Greater Somalia, was not what it is now up until, like, let's say the end of the late 1800s. But before that, those people, that ethnic group, were 100% the most feared ethnic group in the whole of Africa. And the reason I say this is because even when you look at the people that have tried to I guess colonize or invade or cause destruction and chaos towards the Somali people, they've always suffered greatly. For example, let's look at the Portuguese throughout history. When they tried to enslave Somalis, Somalis could not be enslaved. Why is that? It's a question to ponder on. If Portuguese people were conquering and enslaving people all over the world around this time, what is it that the Somalis carried and did to prevent that? What type of mindset? Also, when you look at the British Empire in its conquest to Somaliland, you also see that it was never peaceful. It wasn't a never peaceful enslavement. It was similar to the French Revolution with Haiti, where they had individuals fighting back, pushing these intruders out of the land. So, these type of questions is something to ponder on. And also, there are a few books written about Somalis. Here are a few quotations. Of all the races in Africa, there cannot be one better to live among than the most difficult, the most proudest, the bravest, the vainest, the most merciless, the friendliest, the Somalis. That was by General Gerald Hanley. He's an Irish writer and a soldier in the British Army. There's another quote that he quoted. Somalis have no inferiority complexes, no wide-eyed worship of the white man's ways, and no fear of him, of his guns, or of his official anger. They are a race to be admired, if not hard to love. So that's just a few quotations. Also, when you look at the instance of Black Hawk Down, these, I guess, savages to the white man's eye or the white man's perspective, captured American soldiers and sweep their bodies across the city for the world to see that the Somali people will always fight for their land and for their people. In the Somali culture, you don't get sellouts, and if you do, they are identified real quick. So it's a question to ponder on. Are Somalis the most feared ethnic group in Africa? As history has shown us. Also, as an individual coming into the diaspora, living in the UK, even when I was in school, I would always be provoked and told I was not black or Somalis were not black. I never felt accepted by my fellow African people, even though I had African friends. But in general, growing up, there was always that distance where it was either I had to beg them or they had to beg me. And I guess just genetically, Somalis are never followers. They're just genetically leaders, as history has shown us. And this superior complex that Somalis possess, it has its blessings and it also has its curses. Because when we look amongst each other, we have our own issues. So also, when you look at the pirates, you have 4 men in a small boat with couple AK-47s riding around the shores, targeting big military boats away from their waters. Because, there's a lot of propaganda that, Somali pirates are bad and this and that. But all they're doing is protecting their waters. People loot their, I guess, garbage there off the boats, steal the fish. The Somali fishing industry is $1 billion industry that's not being capitalized on. So what do you think these foreign invaders are doing to the seas? And how do you feel? And how do you feel like these pirates feel? Maybe it's affecting their income somehow, their livelihood somehow. And these corporations can just come and steal fish. I don't think it works that way in the mind of a Somali. So growing up in school, people assumed they could bully me because I was Somali, but that was never the case. I would always fight back. I was not someone you could bully. I bullied the bully. Regardless of, white, black, Asian, it didn't matter. But I just knew these individuals, whether white, black, Asian, Eastern European, whatever, they always had an issue with me because I was Somali. I never understood it because I didn't understand my history. People say, oh, no, you're Somali first. But I don't believe in that concept. You're Muslim first, sorry. Some people say, yeah, you're Muslim first. But I don't believe in that concept. I believe in I'm Somali first. You feel me? People that say I'm Muslim first, they suffer from an Arab worship mentality. Because when I'm coming out the mosque or whatever, and I greet a brother who claims he's Muslim or Christian or whatever, they may not greet me based on the hue of my skin. You feel me? When you look at the history of Somali people before the late 1800s and how long they've lived in those territories and what type of greatness was achieved by the Somali people, people will then learn to embrace their identity as a Somali, as a melanated African, because I don't like to use the term black. But people, what I noticed in the Western world, they feel a bit embarrassed to be Somali. I've seen that in a few people, growing up. They just felt embarrassed to be Somali because they were so used to CNN showing them, just propaganda of just famine and all this type of stuff. I'm not saying famine does not happen. What I'm saying is, just this propaganda that Somalia is a war-torn country. Like, they don't show you the greatness of Somalia in general, the greater Somalia, or its true history. So that's something you need to find for yourself. And ultimately, those that haven't visited, I suggest you go because it's completely different. It will activate your DNA in different levels, just returning home. So yeah, man. Embrace your identity of being a Somali. I'm strictly speaking to those in the diaspora, whether you be from Denmark, Australia, wherever. The new Somali standard is to be embracing your identity and loving your identity and uplifting your fellow Somali brothers and sisters. You feel me? But some Somalis, they identify as Arab for some strange reason. Some Somalis identify with black. Some identify with white. Some identify with Asian. But how many of them in the West truly identify as a Somali? You know? And also, if you're ashamed of being a Somali, why is it that because everyone is, everyone of African descent is ashamed of being their ethnicity, especially in the Western world, because of the propaganda and the programming. So it's one of them ones where, tap into the greatness of the Somali people, see all the stuff they've invented, see the standard they, left for us, the ancestors. Because it goes back more than 32,000 years. You can track Somali history, more than 32,000 years. Look into the previous spiritual systems of Wak Ebe, the spiritual system of the Somali people before Islam. Wak Ebe. That's where words like Wadad comes from, and Ayanle, and yeah. Look into the Cushitic people, because genetically, those are still us. Those were our forefathers, and the Hamitic people. But people don't like to, I guess, attach their identity to the ancient Egyptians, and yeah. These people lived for thousands of years, and their inventions were incredible, amazing, mind-altering. But when you look in the Western world, what happens? People want to dim your light, dim your shine. They don't want to show you the greatness of being a Somali individual, whether man or woman. You feel me? They're trying to split us apart and whitewash us. That's what I noticed personally, living in the West. And I feel like I've been silent for too long, and I need to speak my mind. Because, there's Arab worshippers out there trying to dilute your identity. There's white man worshippers out there trying to dilute your identity. And there's black people worshippers that want to dilute your identity. Ultimately, what you must remember is, in the Western world, black culture is controlled by white people, whether it be the music, whether it be the movies, whether it be the environment in general, whether it be raving or whatever. And ultimately, black culture is controlled by white people in order to destroy them. No one can tell me there's anything beneficial about Western black culture. It's just a pollution of noise and destruction and chaos. So we must align, we must unify, we must empower, we must stop this crabs in the barrel mentality. It don't work like that no more. We're the new school. When you look around, yes, we are the new school, and we need the leaders to stand up. That's the new Somali standard, for the leaders to stand up, whether male or female. All this being around the bush and, talking for the sake of talking is over now. Now it's time for the solutions, to set up the straight guidelines within the community. You feel me? Self-haters will be identified. Coons will be identified. And yeah, it just is what it is. So ultimately, the solution for this episode is for you to retrace your history, know your history. Because when I started learning my history as a Somali individual, it empowered me. It gave me a level of confidence I couldn't even fathom before. I walk with a sense of pride. I walk with a sense of nobility. I walk with a sense of honor now. Where in the back of my mind, when I was in school, I heard a Somali boy say one time, "I'm not Somali, I'm South African." I was like, "What? Yeah, who you kidding, huh?" It's like them Toronto Somalis. "What? Yeah, who you kidding, huh?" You know what I mean? That kind of affected me. It hurt me in a way, seeing another Somali person say that about themselves. And when you look around in the Western world, there's some people claiming I'm a black Caucasian. What does that even mean? You're lost. Find yourself before I find you. You feel me? Same time, I'm holding you other Somali individuals accountable as well. Point out the self-haters, identify them, and also identify those empowering you. Recognize them, celebrate them. All this low, shy energy, low confidence, low self-esteem in the environment is going to get cleared out. You know what I mean? And I know some of that comes from trauma. Some of that comes from, missing father, missing mother, many issues. You feel me? But this is a channel for healing, not to just destroy each other. So yeah. And all the other Africans that's listening, tuning in, take note. And when I mean take note, learn from your own community, learn from my community. Because ultimately, the Somali people do not want to belittle you. And those that do, it comes from a place of ignorance. But we also know as Somalis that other Africans do not understand us, nor are they willing to understand us. So unless you're curious about our culture and willing to listen and hear what we have to say about our culture and not tell us what our culture is, then maybe we can come to an understanding. Even though we do in the Western world, but not to a deep level where we can grow and evolve as beings. They're not ready for fresh. They're not ready for fresh. It is a new type of dialogue. I've done the research, I've done the history, and now I know how to bridge that gap. From East Africa to West Africa, from North Africa to South Africa. Because when you look at Pan-Africanism, Somalia, the greater Somalia, has helped so many African countries. So many. But people act like they don't, notice that, or they're not aware of it. So many countries: South Africa, Burundi, Uganda, Egypt. It's just so many, man. I can't name off the top of my head. It's crazy. So yeah, like I said, I am your humble host, the noble Pharaoh Fresh. I come to you in truth. I come to you in love. I come to you in respect. I come to you in ultimately empowerment and healing. If you're tuning in and it's your first time, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment. I would love to have some of you guys as guests on this channel one time. Love to hear your views internationally. Yeah. Rock with me. Because people are shy to stand up as leaders, but I'm here. I'll be the example if you guys are scared to be examples, or those that are scared to be examples. Because I see certain brothers and sisters standing up. And we should, I'll do another episode on a Somali acknowledgement and Somali recognition, just beyond the genetic standpoint. But I don't think people are ready. This is a whole new level. Whole new level.